Hello, Achim Yekarim. How are you? I hope you're having a wonderful Pesach here in Israel, Netanya. Bezrat Hashem, we're going to be doing a shiur later tonight in a yeshiva here, and wanted to answer the question that you had, and the answer is a little more than a yes or no. So Bezrat Hashem will give you an answer with some sources of what happens to a convert that hasn't completed his conversion but started it, is serious about it, but has not completed it, and the Mashiach arrives. So the Gemara Masechet Avodah Zarah, page 4, Aleph, says that once the Mashiach comes, no more converts are going to be accepted. Why? Because at that point it's going to be known that Israel is the chosen ones. At that point it's going to be known that the Jews are the leaders of the world, and that Hashem is created the world for them. So in essence, there's not going to be a trial. It's not a test anymore. Everyone's going to be a convert, similar to the times of King Solomon and similar to the times of King David. Now, this, in the beginning, sounds like bad news. Most people say, what do you mean? I want to convert, I've been trying. So this does not necessarily apply to the ones that are already in the process. This is specifically referring to the converts that were thinking about it but have not made the first step yet, have not contacted a rabbi, have not started seriously studying, have not taken on themselves to start doing the mitzvot, but like the theory, like the the minagim, the culture, like Judaism, learning Torah from time to time, but are not very serious about changing their life. Women are still not dressing properly. Men are still not circumcised, still not praying to Hashem, still not learning Torah. So but you like it. You're watching a shiur, you enjoy my shiur online once in a while, and so it's not someone that's serious. What we're talking about here is people that are very serious, people that have already started seriously learning the things they need to learn in the Torah for the purpose of conversion. One have already started taking on some of the mitzvot that they're allowed to take on, at least 99% of them, that because a non-Jew is not allowed to keep Shabbat 100%, so they have to violate Shabbat to some extent, and the same goes with other holidays and so on. But the point being here is that they're not violating it because they want to, they're violating it because the Torah says you have to, until you complete your conversion, or you're in the final stages, which at that point you're allowed to do it. But now, someone like this, someone that's serious, like some of my righteous students, some in Germany, Baruch Hashem, some in Bulgaria, Baruch Hashem, some in Florida, some all over different parts of the United States and the world, even Africa, even Baruch Hashem. What about those righteous people that, are like Baruch Hashem, in India even, surrounded by Avodah Zarah, surrounded by all the worst things on earth, but are learning Torah non-stop and are helping do kiruv and doing everything right? Is Hashem not merciful, and he's just going to say, no, listen, you weren't born a Jew, you're going to stay a non-Jew even though you tried? Ma pitom, no way. So what happens? So in the Shulchan Aruch, there is a very, very important part to read in Yoreh De'ah, Resh Samech Chet, Alachot Gerim Gimel. This is the alachot, the laws of the converts, of conversion. And in there, in the third part, which is Gimel, Gimel is the third letter of the Hebrew alphabet, it asks a question. Well, what happens, when a ger comes to you, you tell him, what do you tell him? He wants to convert. They say, well, first thing we tell him is that, listen, you know that the Jews are a persecuted nation. Yes? You know that the Jews are constantly going through Holocaust and pogroms and anti-Semitism and suffering and killing, and we're not the favorites right now. We are not the favorites, unfortunately. We're constantly being abused, insulted, and tortured on a regular basis. And you, as a non-Jew, don't have to be a Jew. If, a Jew violates Shabbat, the heavenly punishment is death penalty, and much, much more than that even. No share of the world to come, cut off from the nation. But a non-Jew could violate Shabbat openly. He's not even allowed to keep Shabbat. So not only are you adding more stringency to your life with all of these mitzvot, but on top of it, you're taking a risk in case you go back and you don't want to keep them, because there's no unconverting. There's no converting to Christianity from Judaism, or converting to atheism, or converting to Islam, or converting to Buddhism, or whatever other nonsensical religion is in the world. No, once you're a Jew, you're a Jew. That's it. Regardless of whether you're a convert or you were born a Jew. There's no converting out of Judaism. So if you end up not wanting to do it anymore, then you have yourself a problem. And on top of that, you're adding yourself to the nation that's being persecuted on a regular basis. Why would you do this? If the convert answers, this is something you want to listen to. If the convert answers something references to, I wish I could be a part of the nation, meaning none of that stuff matters to me. All I want is to be a part of the chosen people, and I take all of those mitzvot on, all of the persecution on, with no care in the world except for the truth that I cannot live without. The Shulchan Aruch, this is the book of laws of Judaism, says they convert him on the spot. No tests, no a 6-month wait, or 1-year wait, or 9-year wait, or money, or anything. They convert the person on the spot, and on top of that, they start teaching him the laws little by little, but they don't put too much stringency on him. They actually go easy on him or on her. Why? Because they're brand new, they're babies. But they convert him on the spot. On that moment, they go to the mikveh. If he hasn't done a Brit Milah, they do Brit Milah. He's considered 100% Jewish. So why do they go through this whole thing? Why is there this minag, this culture that you reject a Jew, you reject a convert 3 times before you accept him in today's age, unfortunately? Why is there this long, horrendous process in some places around the world where they make you suffer, this righteous convert suffer for a year, for 2 years, for 5 years? I even heard one story of 9 years going to some conversion where the Shulchan Aruch clearly says, on the spot. This is because, unfortunately, throughout times, there's been many unrighteous converts. There's been many terrible converts that were not really converting for the right reason. That were not converting for Judaism's sake. They were converting for marriage purposes, for convenience purposes, and Hashem Erachem, even for money purposes. So in order to check the authenticity of the person, they have to go through a trial. Now, this whole idea or culture that people have that you have to reject a convert 3 times is not a law. It's not a law, and as a matter of fact, the minhag, the culture itself, doesn't actually have very good sources, meaning that it doesn't necessarily come from Judaism. So many people have heard this so many times that they actually think this is part of the Jewish law, this is part of the Torah, that you have to reject them 3 times. This is completely untrue. Anyone that wants more clarity on it, I can. But the point I'm trying to make here is that the reason why the rabbis have to be very, very careful with converts is because, number one, we cannot afford to have a wicked convert. Because if that person is not really meaning to convert, then, even though physically here he may convert and he may fool the rabbis, the Bedin, and even perhaps their spouse to be, he's not fooling Hashem. So he goes into, or she goes into the mikveh, a non-Jew, and they come out a non-Jew. Even though everyone else will consider them Jewish, in reality they're not Jewish, which means that all of the children coming out of them will not be Jewish if it's a woman. And if it's a man, then it's a different problem. But nonetheless, it's a huge, huge problem. So they cannot risk having someone that's not really authentic. The second thing is that if the person is really just clueless about Judaism and just wants to join it because he heard some good things about it, but he doesn't really know what it really takes, then they don't want to put that person in front of in essence, almost like a trap. Not a trap, because Judaism is beautiful and amazing, but it's not for everyone. So you're not allowed, according to the Torah, you're not allowed to put an obstacle in front of a blind person. So in essence, converting someone nonchalantly, without checking them, without making sure that they're authentic, without making sure that they can actually handle this, you're in essence putting an obstacle in front of a blind person, which means that the rabbis would be sinning. Not only for their own sake, but also for this poor person that's converting and now he's going to get himself into Judaism, completely clueless. And the next thing you know, he starts sinning, violating Shabbat. After a few months, a few years, he decides not to keep anything. And then the next thing you know, the guy gets eternal punishment from Hashem for stupidity. This is not worth it. So the righteous rabbis have implemented certain laws, just like the Torah says, and Hashem orders the rabbis to put a fence around his fence, meaning that he has laws, but if the rabbis, obviously throughout times, as things change, if they see that people are more likely to violate some of the core laws of Judaism, they're allowed to make additional laws in order to get people away from violating the real law, the core law from the biblical law, from the Torah. So this is, for example, like milk and meat. Obviously, it says in the Torah you're not allowed to have, let's say, steak with milk. But chicken is poultry. It's not actually meat, but it looks like meat, and it feels like meat, and in some cases even tastes like meat. So that's why the rabbis have added a law and said you're not allowed to eat chicken with milk either. Because if someone sees you eating a chicken sandwich, they may not know that this is a chicken sandwich. They may think it's just a meat sandwich, just a white meat sandwich. And they may think, oh, all of a sudden, yeah, this rabbi is eating a chicken with cheese sandwich. So obviously they probably changed the law, so it's allowed to eat steak also with cheese. So they put a fence around the fence. Same concept with conversion, same concept with all of Judaism, where there are certain additional rabbinical laws that have been added in accordance with the Torah, with permission from Hashem himself, in order to get us away from the biblical violations, because the biblical violations are just too dear for us to violate, and people just have no idea how much suffering they would get if they don't do tshuva. So now, back to our question at hand. If someone is authentic, the rabbis would convert him on the spot. So what about today? How come they don't convert authentic people? There's plenty of authentic people out there. How come they don't convert them on the spot? Because again, there's so much concern about people playing and acting and so on that we just have to go with the teachings of our forefathers, which is to go through a process. And you have to find righteous rabbis, righteous dayanim. Your conversion should not take 9 years, 4 years, or anything. It's literally something that should take a matter of months according to your teaching and according to your learning. If someone is truly serious, conversion shouldn't take more than several months. If someone is not serious, it could take eternity. But if you're truly serious, it's a matter of a few months. You just have to find the right rabbis in the right places. And Be'ezrat Hashem, anyone that has needed help has come to me, and Baruch Hashem, we're trying to help everyone. But again, it's all up to your learning and undertaking of the mitzvot. If you're not serious, I can't help you. If you're serious, then obviously we can. Point being here is that if someone is going through this process and is serious and is learning, but Mashiach shows up, what happens to them? Since they were already learning, since they already took on the mitzvot, since they already accepted Hashem as a permanent part of their day-to-day life, minute by minute, and are learning and observing His Torah already in Shamayim, they have already started a process, which when the Mashiach comes, they will complete the process. Because, as we said, according to the Shulchan Aruch, you could accept a convert on the spot, based on his authenticity. But mankind cannot authenticate someone like this, because we don't have that ability. The Mashiach can, Hashem obviously does. On the other hand, if someone is not authentic, they could be even a day before the conversion, and they would not go through the conversion. They would not be completed. Why? Because Hashem knows what's inside you, which is one of the 13 principles of faith that the Rambam wrote that each and every single Jew, whether convert or natural born, has to repeat, recite, and believe on a day-to-day basis, is to believe that Hashem knows your thoughts. He knows what's inside you. So if you are authentic, He knows. You could fool everyone around you, but you cannot fool the one above us. So the key is, are you authentic? Are you a legitimate convert? Are you a legitimate person that wants to convert? And if the answer is yes, you have nothing to worry about. continue your learning, and Be'ezrat Hashem, you'll complete your conversion one way or another. If you're not authentic, then Baruch Hashem, you've learned this far. You should stop the nonsense. Go find yourself something else to do with your time and move on with your life, because fooling people, you're playing with fire when it comes to Judaism. So here is something very important, that we learn that the laws of Hashem, sometimes He's the only one that could implement them. Sometimes He puts the rabbis at play to implement them. But at the end, at the full end, when the Mashiach comes, we're all going to know the truth. Who's really righteous and who's really wicked. Regardless of whether they're wearing black and white and have a beard that's 6 feet long. None of that stuff matters. What really matters is what's inside you and what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. Also keep in mind that before the Mashiach comes, even though He's going to appear one day, it's not going to be appear one day where we're all going to work, having a good time, and one day He just appears. There's going to be a lot of balagan before the Mashiach comes. There's the war of Gog Magog, and the end of the world, the Third World War, which in many opinions has already begun. So there's going to be a lot of time before the Mashiach comes, even through this process, which means that since we already find ourselves at the end of days, anyone that's truly authentic and legitimate about converting, get going. Don't wait for this last minute. Don't wait for the Mashiach to authenticate you. Get yourself going. If you need to move to a Jewish community, then move to a Jewish community, because that's a critical part of converting. If you need to get a Brit Milah, then let's go. Talk to me. Let's figure out something. We have to get a Brit Milah. If you're in the U.S., there's someone that's a righteous doctor and Rav that's in New York that's willing to do it for free. If you are, as far as learning is concerned, if you are behind on learning, then get yourself into a learning mode every single day. Whether you're Jew or Gentile, you have to learn, obviously different things, but nonetheless, if you're in the process of converting, you have to learn the entire Torah. You have to read the at least the first 2 of the 5 books of Moses with commentary by Rashi at the very least, and perhaps even Rambam. You have to get yourself, Ramban, I'm sorry. You have to get yourself into these things. We're working on actually putting a kit together, a conversion kit together, a guide. And because of my trip to Israel, we've been very, very busy. I haven't completed, but Be'ezrat Hashem, we'll finish it soon. The point here is that everyone knows what they need to do, at least for the basics for now, is what they need to learn. Because we're all running out of time. Let's not wait for the last minute, because if you're really righteous, yes, you don't have nothing to worry about. You're going to end up being Jewish one way or another. But let's not wait till the last second. Get yourself going. Do it. Hashem already has laws in place for people like you, and you have nothing to worry about. But at the same token, if you're delaying, postponing, and taking your time, that puts your authenticity into question. And if that puts your authenticity into question, you may not get in. So Be'ezrat Hashem, this answers your questions about what happens to people that are in the middle of the road. The real question is what's inside you and what you're doing with it. The answer, only Hashem, and you know. So Be'ezrat Hashem, the answer is the right one. Kol Tuv.